Greetings, Pat Contra here to give you my thoughts and review, really, on Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the last movie in the Skywalker Star Wars saga. I got back from it about an hour ago. I went to an 8:05 a.m. showing. It's about a third full, the theater. It's a smaller theater, though. You buy your own seats, one of those sort of deals. And I was a little sniffly, semi-cold coming on here, but I went to see it. I want to get it over with early. And here are my thoughts. And I usually don't do standalone movie reviews because to me it's like, well, everyone else is doing them. What's the point? But this is a cultural touchstone, Star Wars. It's the biggest movie franchise there is, biggest pop culture franchise there is. And plus, I've been a Star Wars fan for the last, 30 years of my life, 35 years. I had the toys growing up, and then I collected the toys and figures in the 90s. And I love the video games, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Rebel Assault, things like that. So I was always a big Star Wars fan before the prequels came out, and the prequels came out, of course, and they weren't that good, and that sort of put through a bucket of water on my toasty Star Wars fandom for a bit. But these new movies have come out, and Disney wants to make some money, so they do these new movies. Obviously, it's a big franchise. It's now at Disneyland. You can go see Star Wars stuff there, which that's still a weird concept to me. And so yeah, The Last Skywalker after The Force Awakens, which I thought was a pretty good movie to sort of try to get the franchise up and running again. When you think about it, the prequels are sort of just a weird oddity on their own, since they really have no connection almost at all to these three newer movies, that you really can just say that there really, to me, hasn't been a connective Star Wars story told between 83 and 2015 when The Force Awakens came out. So you're going to have a lot of people that say, well, this isn't like how Star Wars is. Well, things change in 30 years. You're going to have a lot of different people's ideas of what Star Wars should be. You have definitely different people making the films. Technology is different. Effects is different. Audiences want different things. It's never going to be the same again. And I think the backlash you saw in The Force Awakens and to this movie to an extent, The Rise of Skywalker, is because of that. People have the nostalgia for movies that came out in the late 70s and early 80s, and you're never going to see movies like that again. It's hard to just have a movie made in one time period, a couple generations removed, and then say that, I want that same exact type of movie to be made now. It's just not going to happen. That said, though, like I said, I enjoyed The Force Awakens for what it was. The Last Jedi, obviously people are very divided on it. I thought it was all right. The biggest sin of The Last Jedi, which you see in full effect, and I'm trying to be spoiler free right now, I'll get into spoilers in a bit, is that The Last Jedi is really, besides character interaction between Kylo Ren and Rey, really not a hell of a lot is necessary in terms of story for The Last Jedi to exist, to propel the story forward, between The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. The Last Jedi doesn't really need to exist, because really The Rise of Skywalker is almost a direct sequel entirely to The Force Awakens. And that's really going to be, to me, over time, the biggest flaw of this trilogy is the fact that it's not a true trilogy, in that the story doesn't really progress that much between 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Not the same way, obviously, Empire Strikes Back was a huge connective tissue between the movie before and afterwards. The Last Jedi really wasn't. You have, spoilers for Last Jedi, you have Luke Skywalker's life comes to an end. You have the burgeoning relationship more so with Kylo Ren and Rey. Other than that, though, it's just a long space chase with some, meandering side plots that aren't really necessary, have nothing to do with anything else. So that's really the biggest flaw of The Last Jedi. I don't hate The Last Jedi, but it's not something that, I'm never going to want to be like, let's pull out The Last Jedi and let's watch it. I watched it again in preparation for The Rise of Skywalker, and like I said, it was fine. I didn't hate it. It's just that, knowing looking back now that, like I said, there's nothing really you need to know that happens in The Last Jedi besides a couple of minor things to enjoy The Rise of Skywalker. It's an inconsequential sort of film, and that's again the biggest flaw, and that's on the Disney Star Wars higher ups and probably Kathleen Kennedy for not having a one unified vision of story, but between all three movies. Maybe J.J. Abrams, he should have stuck around for the second movie, but maybe he figured it was in good hands, and it really perhaps wasn't. They didn't have it all outlined, apparently, beforehand. I don't know how you do that with a multi-billion-dollar franchise, but that's going to be debated in Hollywood history books and entertainment history for decades to come. How these are really two movies that are connected with the bread of a trilogy, with a nothing in the middle, a nothing meat sandwich is what The Last Jedi really is. It's like, it's a decent movie on its own, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the trilogy. And that's the situation that J.J. Abrams looks like he was in when he came back, almost out of, I don't know if it was a love of Star Wars, and he just wanted to see the trilogy come to some suitable end that he could see, like, okay, this is the way it properly should have ended. Because after The Last Jedi, you could have done whatever you possibly wanted to. It was up in the air where you wanted to go. The Resistance or Rebel Alliance, the same damn thing, which is an issue we'll get into in a bit about these movies wearing thin on their own in terms of the themes and the story. You could have done anything, but the Resistance was down to 20 people. And it's okay, we can blank canvas, do what you want, J.J. Abrams. So what you have is almost like a return of the Jedi in the Rise of Skywalker, and now I'll start to get into some spoilers here. So you have the Resistance back in the Rise of Skywalker that looks more like the Resistance in The Force Awakens, even including a couple of actors that from Lost that J.J. Abrams likes, that now you see back that weren't in The Last Jedi, but they're back in the Rise of Skywalker from The Force Awakens. It's just, that was the first thing that hit me right away. I'm like, okay, this is the guy who did Force Awakens, and this is continuing the story of Force Awakens here. And you have JJ in this film trying to please as much as he can, while at the same time sort of smoothing out the rough spots of The Last Jedi that some people had a problem with, either by direct dialogue of character brought up, of actions that happened, or building upon things that happened. So get out of the way right away. Spoilers. The Emperor Palpatine, you find out, has been laying dormant on some Sith planet out in the middle of nowhere that no one knows about, I guess for the last 30 years, while at the same time somehow rebuilding a fleet of Star Destroyers with full crews somehow in the middle of nowhere, and basically rebuilding the Empire, but calling it the Final Order instead of the Last Order. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief here, just because there is no indication at all that this is happening, or hints of it in the first two films, or even edging in that direction at all. Snoke was the big, powerful guy in the first movie that you see hints of, and then controversially, I thought it was an okay move to do. It didn't bother me that much. In The Last Jedi, he's killed off. So basically, the Emperor character is killed off in the second movie unceremoniously, in the middle of the second movie. So from there, what do? You have to have a big baddie, potentially. So JJ's like, well, you killed off Snoke. I guess we got to go back to the well. We got to bring back the Emperor. And that's what they did. And it's lazy, but at the same time, I don't know what else you could have done besides having, just Kylo Ren be the new Darth Vader, which would not have been interesting to me here. It was a lot more interesting what they've done, building up the relationship and tension between Kylo Ren and Rey, in terms of them trying to see the good and bad in each other, and they both have good and bad, and you find out why, and it's because, surprise, Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. You find out, which is like, all right, that it could make sense that's the way you want to go here with Rey. I get it. she's really, really powerful. A lot of people think overpowered. I was one of the people that said, yeah, she is a little bit overpowered. Yeah, she was good at hand-to-hand combat. She has her staff in the first one, and they make a joke of it or reference it in The Last Jedi. It's like, how could she beat a trained Kylo Ren with a lightsaber? Kylo Ren was injured, though, being shot with by Chewbacca as a bowcaster. But still, she's a powerful being. She has a lot of force power. What's going on here? So that's the one way you could have explained it, and that's what they did. They didn't go the route that would have horrified me by saying, "Oh, she's really, Ben Kenobi had a kid or something, something like that." Or they kept it disconnected really from Skywalker, which is good. But they connected it to Palpatine, which again, if that's the only way you can do, that's what you have to do. I think JJ was painted into a corner at the end of how Last Jedi ended. By not having Snoke there, I have a feeling that with Snoke, you could have done something a little interesting and find out what the hell it is. Now you have throwaway lines, unfortunately, where you have to cover up the Last Jedi's shortcomings and say, the Emperor was behind Snoke. Well, what does that mean? Did he create Snoke? Did he train Snoke? Did they meet sometime? Like, who is Snoke? You still don't know who Snoke is. He's just a guy that was the head of the First Order, even though he wasn't in the original trilogy, and Palpatine doesn't really give you any more hints there either once you see Palpatine. And that's, to me, the biggest, flaw of these movies is that, again, there's no connective tissue between these movies that makes sense when you look at it on its face. We have a huge fleet of ships being built for some reason, and we haven't used them already to help crush the Resistance in the previous two films. We're waiting for some reason. That's not good enough on film. But again, this is the best you're going to get out of this film. You're going to get this is a Star Wars greatest hits film. As the guy, as my landscaper outside is doing some work there in opportune moment. You get your X-wing battles versus TIE fighters. You get your lightsaber battles. You get your stormtroopers that can't shoot while the heroes can. You get cute new little creatures. Babu Frick is the best thing they've created probably in all three of these movies in terms of either a droid or little character. Babu Frick is a little droid mechanic, and he or she, whatever it is adorable and funny and cute. And you get your fan service. But I don't think the fan service was too overdone, but then again, Lando, you can make a case for him. Do you really need Lando? No, you really didn't need Lando in this movie, but it's nice to see him back. It's nice to see Billy D back. It's nice to see cameos. I won't spoil the one cameo where I actually went, woo! For it's literally a 2-second cameo in the last 20 minutes of the movie that made me go, woo! But I'm a Star Wars nerd, even though I don't consider myself a huge Star Wars fan anymore. For this character, I will consider myself a huge Star Wars fan in this instance for this cameo. You have introduction of new characters. Was Zori and Jannah. And the only thing I'm thinking the whole time, and this was rushed character development, because this is a 2.5-hour movie that, they could have had another half hour and it would have been enough to develop these new characters you are introduced to. So Zori has a past with Poe, which is interesting to find out. And then you meet Jannah on that was on what? On Endor, and a group of ex-stormtroopers. So then you have an interesting parallel to Finn's character, who Finn in this movie has a lot to do, thankfully, because Finn did almost nothing in The Last Jedi. One of the problems I had with The Last Jedi was Finn had next to nothing to do anything to do with the plot of importance. So you have a group of ex-stormtroopers. That to me is a very interesting concept to pal around with the group. They do almost nothing with the concept because there's no time. And Jannah develops a quick rapport with Finn because they're both ex-stormtroopers, but that doesn't really go anywhere. But they fight together. Zori's an interesting character because you learn there's a backstory with Poe, and Poe used to be a spice runner, or basically like a drug dealer of sorts, before he joined the Resistance. And all I'm thinking watching this is that, wow, these are two characters I would have loved to see more of and developed and actually have character arcs. They should have been introduced in the second movie of this trilogy, both of them. And unfortunately, that's, again, the shortcomings of this whole trilogy, is that you had a second movie that doesn't matter and didn't introduce any characters that really came through to the third movie. You killed off General Holdo with her kamikaze attack, which was referenced in this movie in a throwaway line with Poe saying that was a 1 in a million thing. So they even backtracked that, thinking like that's J.J. Abrams saying, well, dismiss that, forget about that, we can't do that again. Because of course, if you could just kamikaze attack ships with hyperspace, you'd be doing that all the time. Of course, you would take one for the team because you're gonna get killed anyway, and just hyperspace, your ship into a huge Star Destroyer and take them all out. Like that'd be the smart thing to do if you could do that. It absolutely would be. It may not be the most honorable way to do it, but it would work and would save you in the long run. I mean, it sort of happened. It kind of semi-happened in Return of the Jedi, with the A-wing crashing into into that Star Destroyer, into the bridge of that Star Destroyer, and it took it out. Remember that? That was a big moment. So why not all the ships do that? But with hyperspace, anyway. So Jannah and Zori are introduced, and they have some connection to the plot, which is very rushed because this is a not doppelganger. I'm tired. I'm sorry. This is a run around and fetch quest movie. That's not is it a Deus device, whatever. I'm not getting my terms correct here. Again, I'm tired. I got up at 7 o'clock in the morning to see this movie. This is a fetch quest movie where they go around and try to find devices to track. They try to find objects to find a device to track where the Emperor is. That's basically what this movie boils down to. So along the way, they meet these people that try to help them do that. And again, these are characters that I like that they're in the movie. I like Jannah. I like Zori, but they should have been introduced in a second movie if there was a plan to do a trilogy on paper, and there wasn't here. The one great positive about this movie is that the three main actors have extremely good chemistry with each other. Unfortunately, you find that out in the third movie and not in the first or second movie. Because in the first and second movies, in the second movie, all three of them aren't together at all. Are they together at all in the second movie? I think they are for like a minute and a half in the beginning, and then they split up. And in the first movie, they really aren't either all together doing anything. So this movie, they're together for the first half of this movie, and they have great chemistry together. So Rey, Finn, and Poe, it's great to see them, and they all have different character dynamics with each other. They're all just gallivanting together on these fetch quests for the MacGuffin. That's what I was trying to say before. This is a MacGuffin movie, MacGuffin device, not Deus device or doppelganger. It's a MacGuffin device movie here, and it's great to see them interact with each other. But again, it makes you wish then that the other two movies were a little bit different because The Force Awakens even failed to put these characters together more. Remember, Poe disappears for like the middle hour of that movie. He's just gone and not around at all until the end for the attack on the Death Star number 3 or 4 number 3, which they reference in Rise of Skywalker as well, saying, "Oh, that was a mistake." Yes, that was a mistake to have another Death Star run to bring back your franchise. But it was good to see these three characters interact with each other, and again, it made you wish that there was more of that before. Again, no solid plan laid out here. The MVP of this trilogy to me is probably Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. He has the most emoting to do. Well, Rey's character does. She does as well. Daisy Ridley, she does a lot too. I think Daisy Ridley did very well in this film. And probably was good to find out she had like a backstory to act against versus the other two movies where it's like, what the hell is she? Is she really from nothing or no? Are they going to reverse that? Was there a decision that was made by J.J. Abrams that J.J. Abrams always wanted to be someone of importance that was her parents or no? And then was his hand forced by Rian Johnson saying you come from nothing? So it turns out that I guess I forget if it was the Rey's mom or dad was Palpatine's son or daughter. I forget which one. I think it was the daughter, but I'm not positive. Which is strange because then you think that Kylo Ren would have realized that no, you didn't come from nothing. You're of the Palpatine lineage, and didn't realize that. But also then, I guess Palpatine had some sort of deadbeat son or daughter that I guess never lived up to his potential and had no force powers, was just a junk trader. that's an interesting plot hole that I actually want to see develop. Or did they run away? I guess, and then he had to chase after them to try to get. I guess he found them obviously to get that. See, that would have been interesting. It would have been interesting to explore that. Now I think about it as a side story there. You know, keep the granddaughter away because grandpa's an asshole and either wants to kill you or raise you to be an evil force in the universe. I didn't have a huge problem with that. Again, what else could you do to explain how Rey's so powerful? And that's what you went with. But Adam Driver is the MVP of this trilogy in terms of acting, in terms of Kylo Ren probably being the most interesting character. Rey is not an extremely interesting character because she's just overpowered. She's an overpowered kind of orphan, really. And to me, it's a fine character, but to me, it's not the most interesting one. Kylo Ren is interesting, and seeing him struggle with his own morality, even after he killed my favorite character Han Solo, that to me is a good part of the film here. You see the Knights of Ren finally used. The Knights of Ren, again. You see him for a split second in a flashback in The Force Awakens, and then nothing at all in Last Jedi, and then you see him here fighting in The Rise of Skywalker. The problem is that they're not developed either. You don't see anyone with their helmets off, and they were Luke's students. They don't say a word in the whole thing. So again, it would be nice to just even have a short scene with them to be like, oh yeah, this is why we're following Kylo Ren. They're Knights of Ren. They're Knights of him. And so you don't get any motivation between or any characterization with any of them. They're just used as more powerful henchmen. And again, that was I think a disappointment. And then they're dispatched with no heartache because Kylo has known these guys now for a while, like 5-10 years probably in terms of timing. So or more. So again, the Knights of Ren, it was great to see them used because it was bizarre that they were just referenced and nothing came of them in The Last Jedi at all. But that's a disappointment as well. Again, this is a rush film. They can't do everything. No one's going to sit through a 3.5 hour, Star Wars film. But maybe they needed to do that. Maybe they needed another half hour, 3 hours. Endgame was 3 hours. Avengers, I think you might have done that. It'd be interesting to see what they cut out of these films. But again, that was great. You get good character interaction between the three actors: Adam Driver, John Boyega as Finn, who did great work in this trilogy, and Oscar Isaac. Let's say Adam Driver by accident. Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, and Daisy Ridley here. Hard to keep track of all the names. The unfortunate part of this film, again, something that JJ did, I think, a commendable job. They did a commendable job overall ending this saga, but sort of did the best they can with the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher around when The Last Jedi came out. So it's hard not to look at the footage they used, which was extra footage. They CG her into, they basically cut and paste her out of where they shot her and then put her into these new environments and have her interact. And a lot of it's very generic, very well. This could have been used in 40 other scenarios, sort of. Dialogue that they got. I don't know I don't know. It's hard to know if they just said they didn't know she was going to pass away. They said, "Oh, we'll just film you extra dialogue, Carrie, just in case." No, but that's how it kind of came off for most of it. There was even a part that was strange where it's like, "Well, let's really use the last of this footage up." This was early on where Rey gives Luke Skywalker's lightsaber back to Leia, who then gives it back to her like 5 minutes later. When I was watching that, I was like, well, that was really unnecessary, but I think they had the footage and they said we might as well use it. We had it shot, we might as well used it. So it was respectful how they used the footage, I think. Could I tell that it was not new footage? Yes, I could. If I hadn't known Carrie Fisher had died, would I have known that? I probably would have thought something was off with the dialogue just because I look for these things, being, that I write scripts, goofy scripts. I've written screenplays as well. I would kind of be like, well, that's kind of, would have known that nothing was too specific in her dialogue. I'll just say that. Nothing was like, yes, you have to go to this location or this person is doing that. Her dialogue was like, yes, we have to win. Like that was her dialogue. Her dialogue was like, don't underestimate a droid. This is like very generic dialogue that it seemed like they ran her through lines before just in case they had to use it. But they didn't know she was dying, but that's how almost like the dialogue seemed. We'll just plug her dialogue into anything. But I thought it was respectful. You can't recast Carrie Fisher. That's sacrilege. And her final moments I thought was also fitting. But yeah, a lot of it was just like generic dialogue and then reaction shots that were just pulled from other, B-roll. That's what it came down to there. And unfortunately, though, what this movie has shown me, and I've talked about this before, about there's only so much you can do with this saga, and it tends to repeat itself. It's like poetry; it rhymes, according to Lucas. You can't keep making the same movies over and over again, and that's what happens when you have 3 trilogies with almost all the same themes, almost all the same bad guys versus good guys. You got stormtroopers in all 3 of them. You have X-wing type fighters in all 3 trilogies, and TIE fighter type fighters in all 3. You have a Death Star. You have 2 Death Stars. You have a semi-Death Star in the Phantom Menace. Not really, but it's not a planet killer at least. Okay. Then you have 2 Death Stars in the original trilogy. You get another Death Star or Killer Star, whatever the hell it's called, in The Force Awakens, and then, of course, you get more Death Stars in The Rise of Skywalker, which, spoilers, every single Star Destroyer that Palpatine builds in the middle of nowhere, I don't know where the resources come from, has a star-killing laser cannon in it. And this is wearing thin. It just is. You can't have the denouement of all your stories being, well, they're going to blow up planets, let's just destroy the thing that's blowing up planets. It just is, it's thin. And that's what it shows me. That Star Wars as a concept with the different, basically, the rusty, fantasy, futuristic feel, that's great. This is a fantasy franchise. It's not sci-fi at all. It's fantasy. I like the idea that it's fantasy, but it's all futuristic fantasy. I like that. You can do things with that. You can do Mandalorian. You can do like a tale of, I don't know, like a I think a rumored story from the never happened Star Wars TV show that they're going to do like 10, 12 years ago, was that it was going to be about like a family of traders and how they get along with the Empire and things like that, and running into problems and the underbelly of the Star Wars universe. You can do interesting things with that. I think you're done doing anything interesting with Jedis and Sith. I think that's done. I think we're done. The fact that you have to repeat the same exact lightsaber type of battles and the Emperor and Force powers and X-Wings battling TIE fighters, I get that that's why people like Star Wars, but it's I think it's thin to a lot of people. And I think half of this doesn't feel like Star Wars or this isn't good anymore is that we've seen the same thing over 40 years now. Between 9 movies, 11 movies, and a few different cartoon shows, and more movies to come, I think it's okay to move on, especially from the Skywalker saga, and Luke Skywalker, and fighting Vader progeny, and things like that. I think we're all done. I'm done. I'm done with it. This isn't a terrible movie. It's a solid movie. This is a Star Wars The Greatest Hits movie, but that's what it is. It's Star Wars The Greatest Hits. And if that's all you can do with Star Wars at this point in order to end the saga, then it's time to have an entirely different creative property to draw upon. At least for these sort of stories. At least to me. Well, I've been talking for a half hour now and rambling. But that's really what, to me, is the heart of the issue here, is that you have a premise that's run thin. Not thin here. And I don't know where you can go from here. Yes, there were some great moments in this movie. The fan service I didn't think was overdone. There was heartfelt moments that reversed on themselves. Like, you think Chewbacca's dead. See, to me, that would have been, I think it would have been ballsy to keep Chewbacca dead at that moment, even dying off screen. I would have been like, okay, this movie has some balls to it. But they couldn't do it. Chewbacca, they bring back to rescue him from a Star Destroyer, which is, again, greatest hits, rescuing the Princess Leia from a jail inside the Death Star. It's the same thing, from a jail cell that they rescue Chewbacca, have to fight their way out shooting stormtroopers that can't shoot worth a damn. That's fine. The C-3PO thing, he gets his memory wiped. It's actually sad that he loses memory. But again, it's C-3PO, who cares? But he comes back, and it is kind of sad. But then R2 gives him most of his, he had a backup, R2 gives him most of his memory back anyway there too. So you have that. So they reversed everything here. So you can say that Rian Johnson went too far in some places and was too subversive, or, but JJ, I think, did play it too safe here. And he did play it really too safe in The Force Awakens. But if you don't play it safe, maybe everyone gets pissed off if you don't have TIE fighters and X-Wings and a Death Star to destroy and the Emperor and lightsaber battles every, 25 minutes. Maybe that's all Star Wars is, and I'm okay with if that's what it is, but then I'm out. I'm tapping out. Oh, that was on the whole time. I'm tapping out there then, because I guess it's okay to move on from what you liked, from when you were a child up until your teenage years and even your 20s. It's like, I'm fine. That's all the Star Wars I need right now. I'll still check out Mandalorian, but that's all the Star Wars with lightsabers and Sith powers and lightning bolts getting thrown out. That's and X-Wings battling TIE fighters for the 80th time. I think I'm good. I think I'm fine with it. So at the end of the day, The Rise of Skywalker, you want to give it, I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. I think I gave like The Force Awakens like a 7 out of 10. And The Last Jedi, almost about the same. Between, I don't know, a 6 out of 10. Maybe it's slightly worse because not a whole lot happens at one point in the film that of consequence, where they're just slowly chasing them, and the casino scene was really bad. So maybe you dock it a point. So you have like a 7 out of 10 trilogy here. The original trilogy was, you had one movie that was great, one that is Empire's phenomenal, not even as a Star Wars movie, as a standalone movie, and then Return of the Jedi is pretty good too, even though the Ewoks are terrible to me. It was at that point I was like, oh, this is weird, and that was it was thin having the second Death Star even in Return of the Jedi, but that's the way they decided to end the trilogy, because what else can you do? I guess have it blow up the Emperor again, or blow him up. Yeah, the Emperor is basically blown up twice in these movies. Once in a Death Star, once just, from lightning destroying him there. But I will say, this was the best lightsaber battle. The lightsaber battle on Endor with the water crashing around was the best lightsaber battle to me. You got to go back to Luke versus Vader in Cloud City. This was an excellent lightsaber battle. It had emotion. It wasn't too fancy. It wasn't over choreographed, where you can't follow anything, and it was unrealistic, like the prequel shitty lightsaber battles where you're flipping around and, I just cut someone's leg off. They're doing a flip at me. I'll just slice your calf. None of that. It was a great battle. And the lightsaber battles have to have an emotional purpose, and this one had a big emotional purpose. Kylo's trying to draw her to the dark side, not kill her, hopefully, because he likes her. They have an admiration for each other. And then she wants revenge for killing Han Solo. Rey wants to get hers and get back at him for that. So there's a nice push and pull of that there. And then will she or won't she get pulled to the dark side entirely? And then you have Mama Leia reaching out. And then it was a great scene. That could have been the best scene of the whole movie, I think. It was that lightsaber battle. Yeah, you have your fun stormtroopers chasing after you in the desert. That's okay. Cute Babu Frick, who's personally the best character in the movie, Babu Frick there. But that was the best scene in the movie, was that lightsaber battle. And from there, it just became, well, let's just wrap this up with an Emperor and a Death Star devices and big space battle, the end. At that point, redemption, but the end. It's the Return of the Jedi. And then that's where I'll leave this 34-minute long video. My God. 7 out of 10. Solid fan service. Greatest hit Star Wars ending to a trilogy that really didn't need to be made, except the fact that Disney wants to make a lot of money because they spent $4 billion buying it from Lucas. So, they got to make their money back, guys. They got to keep pumping these out. But hopefully the next trilogy is far removed from this. No Skywalkers or anything like that. And go enjoy it. It's not the end of the world. If you're 35, 40 years old and you grew up with Star Wars, of course, it's not going to give you the same feeling as Return of the Jedi or Empire or the original Star Wars. But it is what it is, and you're never going to recapture those same feelings on film from 35, 40 years ago. It's been 42 years since the first Star Wars movie. 42 years. You can let go. Let go, Luke. It's okay. That was me trying to be Ben Kenobi there. I am looking forward, though, to the Ben Kenobi's miniseries. I think that might be interesting because Ewan McGregor was like the only good thing. Him and Palpatine were the only good thing about that first the prequel trilogy. But all right, it's better than the prequel trilogy. I'll say that. At least they use real film and not just CG backgrounds left and right. You got the effects are marvelous in these movies. You really can't see the strings in the new trilogy. That's the good news. Technically, these are brilliant movies all around. So go see Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Let me know what you think by posting your comment below. Did you like this movie? Have you enjoyed this trilogy at all? Or are you like me and you're sort of like burnt out and sort of over Star Wars at this point? And you're like, it is what it is. It's not this holy magical thing anymore. It is what it is. It's just an entertainment property to watch. In terms of pop culture relevance, it's probably fallen off for good to a certain extent. You know, it's not going to be like, I don't know, like Dune. Speaking of that, a new Dune movie coming out, but it's fallen off for sure. I think with the new trilogy, and then with Rogue One, which I thought was good, and Solo, which was okay. There's just too much Star Wars left. All right, that's all for my review/ramble of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm going to go back to working on this new NES Punk video. Hopefully I can do it. If not, I'll just skip it and just enjoy the rest of my holidays. And to you, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year. We'll see you later.